Tensions between China and the US have severely escalated in recent times. With both countries engaging in warlike behavior, it might as well pave the path towards a third world war. This almost became a reality when a US Navy warship came face to face with the Chinese Navy. And by face to face, I mean just a mere 150 yards apart. One wrong move could have prompted a terrible event out in the South China Sea, and such could be the case anytime soon, as China refuses to budge despite countless objections from neighboring countries. In this video, we'll dive into the events that led up to one of the most dangerous maritime encounters in history, and how the situation remains volatile as we speak. Experts have already warned the world about severe consequences that could be faced. Sit tight as we run you through the events that will be marked in history. The infamous 9-Dash Line. China's desire to become a superpower and to claim a huge chunk of the South China Sea resulted in the drawing of 9 dashes around its vicinity. It's like a game of territorial monopoly, and China wants to claim all the property on the board. But why 9 dashes? You see, 9 is a lucky number in China, and they've used this number to outline their territory. It's not based on any international law or treaty. It's China's way of saying, we want all of this and it's ours. End of story. The entire South China Sea is a strategic waterway through which trade worth trillions of dollars happens annually. China claims that anything and everything that comes inside the dashed line is theirs. So the next time you hear someone talk about the 9-Dash Line, remember, it is not recognized by any other claimant country in the region or international community. It's worth noting that the countries in the region are Vietnam, Taiwan, Philippines, Malaysia, and Brunei. But Vietnam, being a victim for thousands of years, always struggling to hold its ground, is once again involved in this gruesome tug-of-war for power. U.S. involvement. The Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier anchored in at Da Nang, Vietnam on Sunday, June 25, 2023. Only the third such visit since the end of the Vietnam War. The three-ship task force, consisting of the USS Ronald Reagan and the guided missile cruisers USS Robert Smalls, formerly the USS Chancellorsville, and the USS Antietam, remained in Vietnam for 6 days. The Navy, typically cagey about the duration of port visits likely due to security measures, initially remained quiet on how long the visit will last. The previous visits were by the USS Carl Vinson in 2018, followed by the USS Theodore Roosevelt in 2020. This visit has caused worry and anger in China, and for good reasons to say the least. It was a U.S. attempt to woo Vietnam into becoming an ally against its neighbor China. A U.S. base located directly on the South China Sea would mean warships wouldn't have to sail back to Japan, Guam, or even Hawaii to rearm, refuel, and if necessary, make repairs. Vietnam is being cautious, however, with its new relationship with the U.S., but is cognizant of the value and potential such a relationship offers. Vietnam shares an 806-mile-long border with China, and the two countries traditionally do not get along. China invaded Vietnam in 1979 and immediately suffered heavy casualties, causing Beijing to pull out and declare victory just after a month. The two countries are also at odds over territorial claims in the South China Sea, including drilling rights. If the two countries go to war again, Beijing's modernized armed forces will be a more difficult opponent, and Vietnam would need allies. Vietnamese media noted that the visit was intended to mark the 10th anniversary of the establishment of the Vietnam-U.S. Comprehensive Partnership of July 2013. Although the initial reason for the Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier's visit was caused by the fact that in May 2023, China had sent the survey ship Jiang Yang Hong into Vietnam's exclusive economic zone in the South China Sea, which Vietnam protested. The political objective of China's assertive behaviors against Vietnam at sea was to show Hanoi that despite its partnerships with members of the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, it is still alone whenever Chinese bullies it. Nevertheless, the significant query remains. Will Vietnam's naval bases serve as a strategic asset in managing the complex relationship it has with China? Years of conflict and war had left Vietnam exhausted, and as soon as it was declared free in 1975, a hand of friendship came forward. It was the Soviet Union wanting to access the newly liberated South. Hanoi declined the offer in fear of provoking China, but soon realized that even yielding to the Chinese authority was not stopping Beijing from helping the Khmer Rouge in attacking Vietnam, so it slowly started opening its naval bases to anyone interested. In November of 1978, it was these Sovietization moves by Vietnam that led the United States to accelerate the normalization of relations with China, which happened on January 1, 1979, to create an unofficial alliance against the Soviet Union and the world socialist system. Before his passing in 1976, Chinese leader Mao Zedong not only opposed the Soviet Union, but also negated the world socialist system by proposing the Three Worlds theory. The first world consisting of superpowers, namely the US and the Soviet Union, the second world of developing powers, and the third world of exploited nations in Africa, Latin America, and much of Asia. It was on the basis of opposing the Soviet Union and the world socialist system that Deng Xiaoping went to the United States in late January 1979 to discuss an attack against Vietnam by China. In this discussion, Deng made it clear that China would attack to counter Soviet expansion in the region. Officially, Carter wrote a letter to Deng that advised China not to attack Vietnam. But in practice, the United States supported the Chinese aggression against Vietnam by providing satellite information on Soviet troops along the Sino-Soviet border. After the fighting broke out, Zbigniew Brzezinski, Carter's national security advisor, met Chinese ambassador Chai Zemin each afternoon to give him his intelligence. At a Chinese Communist Party Central Committee plenum held in March of 1979, Deng Xiaoping said that the United States had informed him that none of the 54 Soviet divisions at the Sino-Soviet border was fully equipped. This intelligence clearly made China determined to implement its plan to invade Vietnam without fear of military retaliation by the Soviet Union. Likewise, China would not dare to conduct a large-scale war against Vietnam if the US-Vietnam relationship was normalized. The lesson that Vietnam took from this was that a diplomatic relationship and military alliance with the United States could have helped avoid the 1979 invasion of China and could still prevent future aggressions from an ever-expansionist China. Now let me ask you a question. Do you think China is committed enough to continue pursuing their objective of taking over the South China Sea? Let us know in the comments below. Taiwan's resistance to China's pressure. It all goes back to China thinking that it owns basically everything in the South China Sea. China has indisputable sovereignty over the South China Sea islands and their nearby waters. Air Force Senior Colonel Tian Junli said in a statement, China sees self-ruled Taiwan as a breakaway province that will eventually be under Beijing's control. Also, China President Xi Jinping has said reunification with Taiwan must be fulfilled and has not ruled out the possible use of force to achieve this. For context, Taiwan is an island roughly 100 miles from the coast of southeast China. It sits in the so-called First Island Chain, which includes a list of US-friendly territories that are crucial to US foreign policy. If China was ever to take over Taiwan, some Western experts suggest it could be freer to project power in the Western Pacific and could possibly even threaten US military bases as far away as Guam and Hawaii. But China insists that its intentions are purely peaceful. Taiwan first came under full Chinese control in the 17th century when the Qing dynasty began administering it. Then, in 1895, they gave up the island to Japan after losing the First Sino-Japanese War. China took the island again in 1945 after Japan lost World War II. But a civil war erupted in mainland China between nationalist government forces led by Chiang Kai-shek and Mao Zedong's Communist Party. The Communists won in 1949 and took control of Beijing. Chiang Kai-shek and what was left of the Nationalist Party, known as Kuomintang, fled to Taiwan, where they ruled for the next several decades. China points to this history to say that Taiwan was originally a Chinese province. But the Taiwanese point to the same history to argue that they were never part of the modern Chinese state that was first formed after the revolution in 1911 or the People's Republic of China that was established under Mao in 1949. But it begs the question, why is Taiwan so important to the rest of the world? What does it have that is desired? Well, much of the world's everyday electronic equipment, from phones to laptops, watches, and gaming consoles, is powered by computer chips made in Taiwan. A single Taiwanese company, the Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, has over half of the world's market control over one of the world's most important industries, which would give Beijing a huge advantage over the rest of the world. Being such a small island, standing in front of a country so powerful, can Taiwan defend itself? At best, it could slow a Chinese attack by mounting guerrilla attacks on shore while waiting for outside help. That help could come from the US. China's warship passing by the US destroyer. An intense exchange between two parties is always a signal of something far greater. On July 3, 2023, a video circulated online showing a Chinese warship come within 150 yards of a US destroyer in the Taiwan Strait in an unsafe manner. On the other hand, China blamed the United States for deliberately provoking risk in the region. On June 3, 2023, the US and Canadian navies were conducting a joint exercise in the strait when the Chinese ship cut in front of the US guided missile destroyer Chang'un, forcing it to slow down to avoid a collision. Mischief Reef. In the mid-1990s, China built a small structure on stilts over a coral reef in the South China Sea, just 217 kilometers or 135 miles from the coast of the Philippines' Palawan Island. At the time, Beijing reassured Manila that the structure at Mischief Reef, a platform topped by 4 octagonal structures with a Chinese flag waving overhead, was merely a fisherman's shelter. It's obvious now that it was planning something much larger. In December 2016, a U.S. think tank, the Asia Maritime Transparency Initiative, or AMTI, at the Center for Strategic and International Studies, released satellite photos showing just how far things have progressed on the reef, part of the Spratly Archipelago. According to the AMTI, the reef now features large anti-aircraft guns and probable close-in weapons. China controls 6 other reefs-turned islands in the Spratlys, and the latest images show that similar defensive systems have recently cropped up on those too. This is militarization, AMTI Director Greg Pulling responded. He added that the Chinese can argue that it's only for defensive purposes, but if you are building giant anti-aircraft guns and CIWS emplacements, it means that you're prepping for a future conflict. In conclusion, China's territorial claims and militarization of the South China Sea has and will continue to spark tension in all the regions of its neighboring countries, as well as the international community. China continues to pursue its agenda without any fear. The international community must remain vigilant and move with caution to promote peaceful and diplomatic solutions. The future not only remains uncertain, but things are complex and there is no easy solution. One must think about the possible impacts on the lives of the future generation any decision can have. As we wait and watch for events to unfold, let us know your opinions in the comment section below. We'd love to hear them. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and show us your support. It helps us continue pushing out the best content for you. Leave a like, and we'll catch you in the next video.